All right, so hello everyone and welcome to, finally, after over a month, and I know this is definitely my fault, I had no reason to delay it this long. Welcome to Beyond Spray and Pray 1000, episode 121. I am your host, Beyond Spray and Pray 1000, which is, I guess, one of my favorite memes about the actual podcast. A lot has happened in the month that I have not done a podcast. I'm thinking that definitely for next month, I'm going to try doing it more often. Just kind of, throw out different things and just get it all out there, just so that way we can have just a nice sort of twice a month thing. I mean, twice a month or maybe once a week could be something cool. I don't know, maybe depending on how much there is to really talk about. But the earlier I start, the better. And I guess now we might as well just start. So the first thing that got announced in almost, I think, like a day or so after the first thing I should talk about, actually going even further back, is the PS4 or the PS5 and the Series X are out. However, they are scalped to high hell because of the methods of actually acquiring them are ridden with bots. It's ridden with probably tens of thousands of people at any given point slamming the website whenever there's a drop in consoles. And obviously, like a lot of things, it will naturally sort of solve itself as consoles diffuse throughout the active population that wants to play them. Now, most people will bring up the good point. This is not even on the podcast topics, by the way, but I do want to talk about this. Most people will bring up the point that consoles, and specifically Sony and Microsoft, don't really care who buys the console itself, and that's actually not an incorrect statement. That's not an incorrect stance. I fundamentally believe that to some degree they probably don't care, and the reason why is because they sell consoles at a loss, and whoever kind of validates that loss is already just doing them a solid. But there is one thing I'm not really too sure how much they care about. I assume that they have to, since it's kind of the whole point of console generations in the last couple of years, and I'm just spitballing. I don't know, this could be completely wrong, but every single person who scalps a console is not going to open the box. They're not going to, take out and play with and mess around, and more importantly, use and spend money on things like Xbox Live, PlayStation Plus, PlayStation Now, DLCs for games. They're missing out on people who would otherwise buy these consoles and use them and own them, actually, spending the money on them and messing around and stuff like that. And I think that's one thing that I don't know if they realize that by doing this they're enabling. I know that definitely a lot of people like to buy games digitally. They like to buy, use Netflix or all these other extra apps, PlayStation stuff, and that's kind of been what they did for the last couple of generations. You could see it on even just by booting up your console sometimes. Hey, you want to try PlayStation Now, even though literally right over here I have my own local version of a PlayStation Now called the PS3. But yeah, I see that that's something that gets thrown out, and that's why I still think it's in their best interest. And it's very rare that I appeal to a company's greed or need to make money. I feel like by definition of being a company and not a charity, you kind of have greed and need to make money, which is fine. I would never say that they shouldn't. But by letting this be as runaway as possible, by letting literally anyone sit on a site, they know way ahead of time, hey, at 9 p.m. this is coming out, and there's no real better methods to actually get said consoles, you're basically just kind of foxholing people, I think. You're kind of throwing them into a pit, and basically, no matter what they do, people are just going to scalp these consoles, and they will continue to scalp these consoles. Even if at the end of the day, most people might not want to buy a scalped console for double fucking markup, you're still really fucking stuff over. And there's ways around this. When, for instance, I know from my experience, when you buy movie tickets, I don't know if this is the same where you live in, but where I live in New York City, when I wanted to buy tickets to, what two movies was it? It was Rogue One. This is back in 2016, and as you could obviously tell, it was Rogue One and the other one that came out that same day, Assassin's Creed, the movie. And I was I wanted to get tickets to both of them because back then I still had faith in Star Wars, even a sliver, and I was interested in the Assassin's Creed movie because there wasn't a game that year, and I wanted to take along a friend. And I obviously, you know, I was like, okay, well, I'll plan it, I'll figure it out, because I actually finally want to go to the movies for once. And so I needed to basically sit on a line and digitally pre-order tickets. Like, once you have your tickets, they like, you select seats, and then they say, like, all right, we'll hold your tickets for the next, like, 20 or so minutes or whatever it is. It might be less than 20 minutes. It's some arbitrary amount of time that they give you so you could then get your card, check out. You know, you don't have to feel like you're racing the clock for seats that 5 other people are now trying to do and pay out and check out with at once. And there's ways to do this. I've heard concerts also do this, where if you want to go to a concert, they'll hold your ticket while you pay for it. So that way, like, yeah, there's a certain amount of tickets, but it's not like you have to, like, have arbitrarily good internet or instant checkout methods to get it. Like, if you're able to click to it fast enough, you can get it. And by the way, it was a very good time we had at those movies, even if neither of them, in my opinion, were ridiculously amazing, although I enjoyed both of them for varying reasons. I do still think that that was a system that was comfortable, it was relaxing, and yes, it was a pretty packed weekend for Rogue One. Not so much for Assassin's Creed, obviously. I think you need a bit more of a actual buy-in to Assassin's Creed, but that's something that, you know, generally I don't really even talk about. I might have had to deal with this earlier this year when I was watching Sonic the Hedgehog, the movie. Now, Sonic the Hedgehog, the movie, remembering, oh god, why does someone call me now? I don't know what that number is. I'm not answering. Sonic the Hedgehog, the movie, came out in February 2020, right before the big event of 2020. Thank you, YouTube. And around that time, I just remember it being even empty back then. I mean, I had basically the best seats in the house, and I was able to just, you know, sit back, relax, and that's why I really enjoyed it. It was a great experience compared to some of my other movie watching days, which has nothing to do with consoles. It's just nice to reminisce on the good and bad movie experiences I've had. Back in 2017, when I was watching movies almost every week, one thing I absolutely remember was how awful some of the viewing experiences for stuff I had was, like Logan, the Belko Experiment. Ghost in the Shell was a pretty good one, and I like the movie, so there's that. I always forget to mention that I like Ghost in the Shell, the remake. But yeah, I digress. The point is that there's ways to sell consoles that are better than just dumping them online and letting bots literally scalp the shit out of them and take as many as the guy can get. There's ways around this that are better. People now resorted to robbing scalpers, which I just think it's just a continuous cycle. And again, all of this, every single bit of it, is the definition of first world problems. Don't mistake it. Don't get it twisted. It is the definition of first world problems. And I 100% understand that. And I totally get that, especially in the middle of a big event like what we're having in 2020. It is the peak of first world problems. Like, just having a PlayStation right now that wasn't given to you through either like a contest or a sponsorship is by far like peak. I wouldn't say, I mean, it's also peak consumerism, I guess, if we want to shit on them a little bit, but it's also like peak first world wealth and opportunity, I guess, and randomness, because there is a luck factor to it if you weren't given special news or special advice for random times to drop. So unfortunately, I've not been able to acquire one myself, so I'm a dirty fucking peasant. I kind of want to get both this time around just because I did not get an Xbox One, and I would like to play some Xbox One games. I would like to be able to buy them for dirt cheap. As you know me, I'm a very big used games advocate. A lot of the games I own were used at some point. So yeah, there are ways to do it that are better than what we have currently, and the fact that they don't do that means that a lot of consoles are just sitting in boxes instead of set up in living rooms where people can spend money and spend time on extra controllers and buying new games. So like, yeah, on some level, I do agree with the argument that they don't care, and I do believe that on some level they don't care, but I also would say that them caring would be one of the few times it would be to the benefit of both themselves and the player base, solely because these people who buy these consoles for 500 or whatever plus tax, whatever, is basically they're just holding them in a box in their garage probably or whatever, and they're not doing anything. They're not making a purpose. They're not serving any purpose. They're not getting any extra revenue. These dudes who buy these consoles are not buying PlayStation Live or whatever the fuck it's called. They're not buying extra stuff. They just have these $400 consoles, and maybe Sony doesn't care about that yet, but I do think that as much as they push a lot of this stuff, especially with the PlayStation, what was it, the PS Gold collection or whatever, which is like the best last couple of games of last generation. I think it's a pretty big deal when, you have this brand new console and they're celebrating it and they're super happy for it, and maybe like, I don't know, 10% of people who actually want it can get it. That's an arbitrary number, of course, but I'm saying like when there's this much of a drought and scalping is this high, not even the Switch was this hard to get. And I'd like to remind you that as a new Nintendo console, the Switch was just a clusterfuck to try to figure out and acquire. But that's not even a topic I have initially on the podcast. I literally just wanted to interject that in because I feel like it is big enough and it is basically the biggest thing to happen in video game history in the last month or so. Now, to the actual program, I could talk about the Cyberpunk 2020, the Cyberpunk 2077 delay, but it's already basically about to come out in another week and a half. Oh, yes, in almost 2 weeks it'll be out. Apparently it comes out on a Thursday. Day after Thanksgiving is a holiday? Oh, shit. Well, no, you know what it is? It's really Black Friday. That's what this really is, because Thanksgiving is always the last Thursday in November, and Black Friday is the day after. My computer calls it the day after Thanksgiving, and if you live in America, you know this. So why the hell am I explaining it to you? I have no clue. Fire Emblem Shadow Dragon and the Blade of Light will be localized on the Switch on December 4th. And one of the things I'm actually kind of sad about is that it does not have a physical release. And I understand, again, big event 2020, but there's a couple things I'm not a huge fan of it. First off, I understand why they did not put it on a cartridge. It actually is just a digital download. Putting it on a cartridge by itself, probably at Nintendo they have some, and I'm sure at Sony they probably do this too, but it's kind of implied since all the games are so big. They probably have like a game size to cost ratio. I know Blu-rays can hold tons of data, and I have no water, so in a minute I'm going to get some water. I should have checked that before I started. The game is 30 megabytes. We're talking about an NES game here. Like, it doesn't get much more basic than this for console gaming. Especially, I mean, they could, but the third generation is pretty much where games, like, we had our whole fucking collapse and shit. And Nintendo emerged from that. But seriously, though, like, 30 megabytes, in my opinion, I understand why they wouldn't put it on a cart. That to me feels kind of like a waste of time. But I would love to get, like, the anniversary edition. Looks so nice. You get an art book, a replica box, a replica, what's it called? NES cartridge, right? Like, including, like, an OG sleeve. Nintendo Power showing off legitimately original Marth. And it's only $6 on the eShop, and I mean, like, I love it. I think it's a great, like, nice touching way to get, for them to bring back a classic, especially given that, and this is also something I should have put on here if I didn't, Fire Emblem Three Houses is the best-selling Fire Emblem game in history, selling, I think, about 3 million units so far. So individually, Fire Emblem Three Houses within a year has already sold, like, hotcakes. It's basically probably one of the most sold games on the Switch without me looking. Obviously, there's stuff like Odyssey and Breath of the Wild and other games like that, but for a Fire Emblem game to sell that much is on its face record breaking, and it's astounding. And I'm glad that they have found a comfortable formula for Fire Emblem where they can expand it and include and make it more accessible to newcomers, while at the same time retaining some difficulty, having a good story, all the good systems. That's why Three Houses is my favorite game on the Switch. It's my favorite game of 2019, and it is by far probably one of the most fun playthroughs I've done in years. And I'm not trying to show my own playthrough on my channel, but it is my channel, so I get to do that. But it was very exciting. I absolutely adored it. I love it. I think it's great. So this, for $6, which is actually less, I forget how much they cost on the Wii U. My only complaint with this whole setup is, again, and we're going to come back to Nintendo later, because they've recently landed themselves as the center of internet ire. My only complaint with Nintendo is how bad their virtual console is and how bad their OG library of games is, right? That is my number one complaint with Nintendo currently. Besides them letting Game Freak be fucking stupid and ruin Pokemon bit by bit by bit by bit by bit just so they could make basically Star Wars money and sell out to the casuals. My biggest complaint with them is more the virtual console and how they handle older titles now, instead of the hardware. Because I think for what they have, their hardware isn't bad if you just want to play Nintendo games. However, I still agree that they should try to at least pretend to make an effort to have real hardware and maybe not have dumb gimmicks for their consoles. I think the Switch is a fine console until, you actually have to compare it to anything, which in an era where Nintendo wants to sell third parties just seems like a reason to not ever do it. The games that are first parties and the ones they care about play pretty well, but I think that it would be much better if in the future they at least tried to care, especially when you have powerhouses like the Series X and the PS5 coming out. It would be nice, like, if next time around they gave us the option between a really ridiculous model that's like made for going out and playing or whatever versus a more standard stay-at-home model. And then, they could have, like, some weird crossplay where if you want to transfer games to it, you can. I personally preferred the 3DS and the DS model as the successor to the Game Boy Advance. I thought that was just a perfect system that didn't need to be fucked with. But Nintendo is nothing if not adventurous in both good ways and bad. So I digress on that one. And I just feel like if Nintendo had a better grasp on what they wanted to do with their virtual console, it would be more user-friendly, right? So I, for one, in case you haven't really been on my channel for too long, I have spent tons of money on the virtual console for the Wii U, because a lot of the games on there you can't really even find anymore. They're very rare. It's hard to find. That's like kind of the whole point of a virtual console, right? Like even Sony understands this. Even Microsoft understands this, and especially with the Series X apparently being like super backwards compatible with with most games from either the Xbox One or the 360, it's like a no-brainer. It's like, hey, you want to play some of these old games again? Like, I think even if you own the discs, you could just put them in and it registers it and you could play. And I know that that's definitely at least the case for the 360. I'm not too sure about I'm sorry, on the one, that is the case for the 360. Not too sure how it works. I haven't really looked into it. But I know that you could play like KOTOR on the Xbox One. And apparently the Series X inherits most of that backwards compatibility. So in my mind, I figure it has the exact same. I don't think it would not, but I believe it does, because that would make the most sense, and from what I've seen so far, that seems to be the case. Nintendo has probably the best library, a better library compared to the Series X and the PS5 combined. I don't think anyone here would debate that. Nice voice crack. I don't think anyone here would debate that necessarily. However, what Nintendo chooses to do is probably the worst out of all three, because Nintendo, instead of having accessibility for all of these different consoles and games and all these different ways to play them, instead chooses the worst option possible, which is basically to resell a lot of this stuff back to you, or just to not have it be available. And I guess we're going to get to the Nintendo in the hot seat moment here, because Nintendo, it kind of can. This is a perfect segue. Nintendo, like, is doing battle with pirates. And, I mean, there's a Gabe Newell quote where he talks about how Steam dealt with piracy. And the reason that it works on Steam is because they basically, to summarize it, offer better service than what the pirates give. And the pirates, you know, when I played Sunshine on my laptop ages ago, this is 2013, it's obviously very different now, but when I played it on my then really high-end laptop in 2013, which I still have over here, it ran Sunshine like shit, mostly whenever anything to do with water entered the picture. And if you've ever played Mario Sunshine, you know that water is a very heavy focus of the game, between being your main method of attacking and with flood and all this other stuff I'm not going to get into. Water was a very big thing, and I figured it had something to do with how the water physics were tied to the GameCube's special hardware and stuff like that. So it more or less was like, yeah, it obviously makes sense. But now apparently it runs just fine, you know, especially as console or computers get stronger and have more power behind them. It just seems to make a lot more sense. You know, the computers can handle it. They could do these advanced brute force calculations by much faster if they absolutely need to. But I just haven't done it again, because I just find like I could just take out my Sunshine copy. I have 2 of them actually, because I bought another one just so I'll always have 2, because it is one of my favorite games of all time, and I've actually been looking to find Pikmin 2 again. Do I have 2 Battle for Bikini Bottoms? No, I don't. But you know, I think it's just simpler when you can just play the game on original hardware. And now that I have the setup I do that lets me play the games I do, I have a Wii that can output to HDMI. HDMI is kind of like the USB of video formats. It's very nice. You know, it works with everything, basically. It just is a very nice standard to have. But yeah, the way you beat it out is by making things accessible. Why Nintendo does not have their vast library accessible is beyond me, because they almost seem to want to do it with the Virtual Console on the Wii U. It seems like, especially for a lot of games, the Wii U and the 3DS worked really well together when it came to Virtual Console. The only thing that you could not do was take games that you bought on your Wii U, even if you were logged into the same account on the same platforms, right? So like, let's say for me, I'm logged into my same Nintendo ID on both my Wii U and my 3DS. They do not let you take, oh, okay, you want to play your 3DS? Or I'm sorry, games you bought on your Wii U on your 3DS, you can't do that, even if it's the same game, which makes no sense because I'm under the same account. And any other service ever would not let that be the case. If you own a Steam account and you go to another machine and you log in, you can download your games. You could, if you own a PlayStation, you have 2 PlayStation 3s or 2 PlayStation whatevers, and you log into the same account, you're allowed to download your shit. I mean, you're allowed to, you know, have multi-downloads. Now, you might not be able to play games on both consoles at the same time. They might say, hey, we don't know about that, because we want to make sure that it's legit on both ends, which is whatever, that's fine. But if you really want to, you can do it, you know? I would have loved to play the Oracle series on the big screen. And to this day, there is no way to do that outside of emulating it through the GameCube, which is a tragedy. Or well, actual emulating. But Nintendo has a long, storied history with hating emulators. They hate them. They absolutely hate them, and they consider emulation to be a major crime. Emulation and piracy. But ultimately, it kind of comes back to the fact that Nintendo does not really offer a good way to play their old games. And I've said this before, I feel. The only games that they would probably need to actually put new legwork and new anything into would be like Pokemon. Like, have Pokemon, you know, work with this. And they've already solved this issue. But this generation of Pokemon is excessively fucked up. Whether or not you enjoy it, I don't think it's any major secret that there's something very awful happening at Game Freak and just in general, because they refuse to use some of the tools and solutions that they thought up even like a decade ago that would solve problems. And I never understand reintroducing problems into a series that's been around for so long. It just seems like a weird thing. It seems lazy. It seems out of touch. And for Pokemon to have it on so many levels is just really fucking stupid. But even more so than that, Like, what else do they need to do besides let you be able to download your Minish Cap, for instance, hypothetically, right? Like, I want to do a playthrough of Minish Cap. Fortunately for me, Minish Cap happens to be one of the games on the Wii U Virtual Console. Awesome. So why can't you just, like, have this system? Why do you have to pay for Nintendo Switch Online to get access to a curated selection of NES and SNES games? Why is it that the GameCube games, the GameCube library, which is filled with some of the most memorable games Nintendo has released in this millennium, why does that never get a re-release? Why is the only Nintendo GameCube game that I could think of off the top of my head to get a re-release? Oh no, the Zelda games did. I'm sorry, I take it back. Why is like the third or fourth GameCube game to be re-released Mario Sunshine, which is fine, but why does it have to come in a very rushed collection, you know? And obviously, big event 2020, I understand, but that collection feels half-baked. It first off, it is missing Sunshine or Super Galaxy 2. I think they should have really reconsidered that or pulled out stops or done something for that. But beyond that, it wasn't even until recently, I believe it was like a week ago, and I haven't tested this myself, so I should probably set up a stream where I will test this in the near future. They just recently added the ability for you to play Mario Sunshine using the GameCube controllers. Now, currently, Mario Sunshine on the Switch does not play the same as Mario Sunshine on the Wii or on the GameCube, because Mario Sunshine on the GameCube, and to explain it very quickly, the GameCube has analog triggers, or analog L and R buttons. They weren't really called triggers back then, as much as people say it. And the way that works is that it detects much smaller, or really any increments that you push the button besides just 0 for probably for unpushed and 1 for completed circuit and pushed. Which, in a game, like so many GameCube games make use of this. This is like the primary feature of the console itself, especially at least the controller, is that you have analog L and R buttons. I forget what the Xbox original used. I know the PS2 does not have that, I want to say. I know the PS2 has clickable... The PS2 has more buttons, though. That's the thing. Back then, it was more about how many buttons you had. The PS2 had L1, select, and clickable sticks. It was 4 extra buttons. Made a whole world of a difference. Not going to get into that. But that was like one of the primary cool things about the GameCube, was that you could half hold or quarter hold these buttons. And I've shown that off using Sunshine, actually, hilariously, as one of the games where that's a major player. Like, you could do that. There's a lot of tricks and certain things you can't do in Mario Sunshine for the Switch because the console does not have analog triggers, which in this day and age is pretty poor because now everyone does it. And now Nintendo, for some reason, the big innovators that they are, have decided to devolve and step back. And I don't understand why. This is, again, going back to I don't understand the console decisions. I think they make very poor ones. But because of that, there's a whole library of games that will be fucked up. And this is kind of the unseen problem with making these games the way that they are. I think Nintendo could dedicate a whole studio, maybe even 2, to figuring this problem out, is that all these games originally had... you know, like lines of innovation, unique gimmicks from that era. And Nintendo's big problem is that if they want to re-release like half of these games, because they put a lot of this bullshit in 10, 15 years ago, like 15, 10, 5 years ago with the Wii and all this other stuff, for them to abandon that hardware now, it's very hard to still have games where that's the case and where you could, port it forward, I think, to put it bluntly. And obviously not every game is going to get a re-release. I think that would be a vast, overestimation. But on the same part of that, I feel like that's kind of what they need to do, because then they bitch about piracy for that. And I mean, it would be one thing if Nintendo directly offers a reasonable, affordable method to own old games. Like, some people like to cite that GBA games on the Wii U should be $1. I don't necessarily agree with that. I think that they want to make it cost efficient. I think that $1 might be too low. I think 7 is a pretty reasonable standing, you know, for a game that's old. I don't shit on it anymore, like, or at all. I don't shit on it any more than I would shit on Sony for wanting like maybe $10 for a PS2 game re-release or whatever they have. And even Sony kind of overprices those PS2 games. Just never hear about it because most people who want to play Jack 3 or, you know, all the Jack collection, for instance, probably still own their PS3s, and probably some of them still own their PS2s, which work. The problem is that in 20 years, that's going to change probably because discs will rot and things won't work anymore, and, you know, just stuff happens, right? And the digital medium is a very powerful one, to say the least. And Nintendo just has the ability to sell this. They have the infrastructure. If they were to re-release, I mean, fuck, they already re-released Pokemon Red, Blue, Yellow, Gold, Silver, and Crystal. They already re-released them for the DS back in like 2017 and 2018. I think it was 2018 mostly. So, in my mind, in those Pokemon, by the way, those games were historic because the big generational reset happened in Gen 3. And in Gen 3... you could not import your Gen 2 Pokemon. This is known forever. I don't need to really explain why or the reason behind it. But the 3DS games actually let you import a lot of these Pokemon. And obviously the 3DS games, the 3DS Virtual Console Pokemon games have a lot of exploits. They have a lot of glitches and stuff, but they didn't patch almost any of them. The only thing you can't do is just reset, but there's obviously the gold silver duplication glitch, which also works to a lesser degree in Crystal, which is why I don't really use it there. There's the shiny Gyarados exploit, which lets you get a shiny Ditto basically for free. There's a lot of cool stuff that they did in the Generation 1 and 2 re-releases that's now possible in Pokemon. For instance, illegal move combinations now became legal. Such as the big one I can think of off the top of my head is a Squirtle with Confusion is now a legitimate thing that you can have if you put in the time and effort. And that's what I mean. Like, it was a renaissance for Pokemon. It was such a good step. I'm not going to get into any more of it. But they have the infrastructure if they were to, say, re-release Ruby and Sapphire and Emerald, as opposed to this rumor that they're going to re-release, like, Pokemon Red, Gold, and Ruby as part of one collection, and then another one with the other games, and then a third with the complete trilogy, all for like $50 or some shit, which I don't believe, and I'll wait to see exactly how bad that is, and I don't know. But seriously though, like, they have the infrastructure for the Pokemon games. There's no reason that the Pokemon games shouldn't get it. Obviously, since they wanted to neuter and murder the DS line for basically no reason, like a whole lineage of games from like 2005 to 2018 are just now dead in the water. And while some of them could get remakes, it just feels wrong. It just feels to me that it was a very unnecessary thing to kill the 3DS. And I think Nintendo, as they keep trying to do this stuff, is going to inevitably cut themselves off at the legs, because now all the stuff that they used to use as innovation has kind of just been thrown away in favor of the Switch. And because of that, you know, it's harder and harder to have a virtual console library where you can just have all these games available on two platforms, either the single screen, big screen of the Switch, or the portable two screens of the DS. And I think that would just be a good thing to have on the DS. The DS has already proven it can hold Game Boy Advance games. If you were an ambassador to the 3DS, you got a bunch of games I wish I could have fucking got back when that console was more barren than a fucking desert, like Metroid Fusion on the 3DS, or I think Sacred Stones is also on there. I'm not sure what the ambassador games are. I'm not going to look it up. The point is that you can put GBA games on the 3DS. I mean, come on, you could put them on fucking phones even years ago. I knew friends playing Pokemon Emerald on their phones. It wouldn't be too hard to say that they could maybe fit DS games on there. It wouldn't be too hard to say that definitely they could add more Metroid, yes. Add more Game Boy games. They could add more other... They could add anything that they want, you know, NES, Game Boy Color. There are some games that are exclusive to the 3DS Virtual Console library, and like vice versa, there are some on the Wii U. And what's sad is that, like, you have to buy DS games on the Wii U, and then you have to use the gamepad to play them. It would just be much nicer to just have the Wii U do like what the Vita did, and like you could like basically use it, like, no, download play like that. It's actually on a Nintendo console. It would be cool. Like, okay, well, you can't take this totally portably, but you could download play, you know, like Metroid Prime Hunters is a game I really wanted to download and play. And I thought it would be fucking cool to do a playthrough on that game, and it turns out there's no real good way to record it. It's kind of a fucked up game just because it's on an old hardware that Nintendo doesn't support. See, like, an old Microsoft game and an old Sony game, like, let's say Spyro the Dragon 1, right? Which they pulled from the Vita store, which is sad. But, like, hypothetically, let's say that Spyro the Dragon 1 was never re-released. I'm sure there's PS1 games that fit this criteria. You could play it on anything. It's a one-screen sort of a deal. It doesn't require, like, touch inputs like the DS or weird tilt mechanics or anything like that, like the Wii. It's just you and a controller. And controllers have stayed more or less the same in the last 20 years. There's obviously additions like the rumble or the haptic feedback and all the stuff. But in general, you got your 4 up top buttons, your face buttons, your D-pad, 2 sticks, and 2 like menu buttons. And that's controllers for the last 20 years. I'm serious. and if a game uses fewer buttons, good. That's even better. But the point I'm trying to make is that Nintendo has really put themselves in a fucked up position, and I don't see any way out of this besides putting in more work. And let's not even pretend for 5 fucking minutes that if Nintendo resold Melee or Sunshine or Coliseum and XD and, you know, did the whole thing where you could import Pokemon directly from those into the new games. Let's say hypothetically they didn't, you know, they let you play other old classics, you know, a whole library of games that if you weren't basically growing up, you know, in my generation, you know, you might not have played it because it was here and it was gone in like 6 or 7 years. You know, like, there's a whole library and roster of games that people just can't play. And they can't just keep re-releasing them like fucking Sunshine as part of a $60 collection that's not even that good. And Luigi's Mansion. Now, granted, they did do the thing I thought they would do and apparently patch Sunshine. And if that's the case, this would be the best version of Sunshine by virtue of it running on superior hardware. I mean, obviously, we could Digital Foundry and test it, right? Like, I'm not... In theory, it should be the best version of Sunshine, just by virtue of it being A, digital, so there's no disc rot, or disc wear and tear. B, it, you know, is ease of access, ease of use, you know, comes as part of a collection, whatever. Same shit. The point I make is that Nintendo has this really, really shitty practice with releasing their old games. Sometimes they're nice about their backwards compatibility, like with the Wii basically having near 100% backwards compatibility, and sometimes they're just fucking awful at it, like with like the Switch basically not being backwards compatible with anything. And I don't know if their next console is going to address it, but this is now a thing that Microsoft and Sony have decided to make a very key point of this console generation. And I'm not saying that Nintendo's going to go out of business or fucking whatever. I'm not going to be a Nintendo doomsday advocate. But I'm also not going to sit here and say that what they're doing is smart nor user-friendly, because I don't think it's either. And definitely it's not user-friendly. You know, with PlayStation letting you play PS4 games on your PS5 and Microsoft letting you play everything on your PS5. Oh, fuck me. I might as well look it up. I put backwards compatibility. That's pretty bad. The Series X is compatible with almost every native Xbox One game, 568 360 games, and 39 original Xbox games. The Xbox Ones that don't work on the Xbox One titles that don't work on the Series X are the ones that require Kinect, so fuck that. I could have sworn that they recently talked about it. This is actually a good thing to look into, just because I haven't really done it in a while. I've been trying to get a Series X as well, so that's why I That's why I was kind of looking into it. Let's see. Can we look at 360 games? A lot of these are just fucking free, apparently. Or I don't know if that's intentional. I guess they just offer you a bunch of free shit. Like, here you go. Like, imagine playing Crackdown in 2020, right? Like, just for 5 seconds. Imagine playing Crackdown or Doritos Crash Course on your 360. Or, I'm sorry, on your Series X. Like for real, man. Like, yeah, they charge you $10, which is kind of what I figured. Some of these are $15, I guess, if you wanted to play them. Like, for instance, Splinter Cell and Chaos Theory. But, like, the point is that they still offer them, right? Like, if you just want to not deal with PC bullshit, which is a lot of people, including me. Like, I have a PC that can play some of this. You know, sometimes you just want to play it on OG consoles. And I understand that maybe you're just not into it. Maybe you don't want to fuck around with it too much. But they offer quite a lot. Like, this is a pretty decent collection of them. I think it's most of the big titles. In fact, can I bring this up on the video? Oh, forgive me. I know this is terrible. And I'm not trying to sound like an asshole when I say that. I did open it in a new window. There you go. I haven't put it on yet. Hold on. I like to crop out some stuff first. I like Opera GX, by the way. Not a shill. I just really do. So, like, if you're not watching this, or if you're not watching this, well, I think you're doing something better with your life. But if you are watching this, and you are at least interested, and you're not just listening to it audio only, you can look at the screen now. This is what they have available on the Series X. This is on Microsoft's Xbox.com website. So they have stuff like Double Agent, Blood Rain, Panzer Dragoon, Jedi Starfighter. This is page 2, by the way. The Original Mercenaries. Can you see my cursor? There you go. The Original Mercenaries, Blinks the Time Sweeper. I actually have that game somewhere. Like shit, like a lot of fucking classic games, a lot of old games. On the first page, they have more. Battlefront 2, the original. KOTOR, one of the most talked about Star Wars games. Next, these are 3 of the top Star Wars games of all time, mind you. Psychonauts, which I think has been re-released. Morrowind, Republic Commandos, also another one. Ninja Gaiden Black. Like, these were hot shit back when they came out. These were, like, top-of-the-line games. Splinter Cell, because, you know, Ubisoft won't make another fucking Splinter Cell, even if the world was going to end. Jedi Academy. They got a good chunk. It's not a ton of games, right? Like, I have games in my Xbox library that are not on this list. If I could really quickly run over here, I could even tell you, like 007 Nightfire, 007 Everything or Nothing, Enter the Matrix, Half-Life 2, Halo 2, and Prince of Persia Sands of Time. I do have KOTOR and Battle for Bikini Bottom, but as you could probably surmise, the only games here that really suffer that aren't re-released in this collection, I actually have Halo 2 twice because I bought it, the normal version and the Steelbook, is like the Bond games, Enter the Matrix, and Prince of Persia. Everything else has been re-released. SpongeBob has been re-released. KOTOR's on that list. And Half-Life 2 has been re-released on the 360. And I know that you could play the orange box off of the 360, so there's no point. And this is actually a pretty fucking cool library, to say the least, for Xbox. This is pretty fucking dope. I'm sure we can search, right? Can we search? There, orange box. Is it the orange box? Holy shit. It's on here somewhere. Can I do this? It's on here somewhere. I'm not going to toggle through it because I've seen people play it. Let's actually do this. Orange box. Xbox One. It's on the 360. Is it compatible? Yep. Orange box is backwards compatible. October 21st, 2016. Guarantee you it works on the Series X. I'm not going to look into it any more than that. But, yeah, that's kind of the point that I did want to drive home, is that Microsoft has this figured out. Even Sony has gotten the heads out of their asses. Microsoft had to figure this out because they were on the back end of this generation, or the last generation, I guess I should say now. Especially after how bad the One was to start. Sony kind of just sort of does it out of fucking pretty much because they're forced to, I guess, for lack of a better word. And Nintendo is over here shutting down stuff. They shut down the Big House's Melee online event. I didn't look into it too much. I just heard that they cease and desisted it. Now, I'm not sure how much this has to do with the recent Smash community allegations. I'm not sure if Nintendo wants to distance themselves from it. I'm not sure how much of this is influenced by them wanting to make money off of basically people still giving attention to Melee. Now, look, I understand that companies aren't going to see a big community thing and always be like, yo, you guys still want Melee? We got you. You know, it's fine. I don't think Ultimate was murdered because Melee is still a thing. I think I'll tell you that much. And the one thing I will bring up as an example is Doom. Doom 1 and 2 are still, like, iconically ported to every fucking thing imaginable. Doom 2, and I think Doom 1, has been played on a pregnancy test. Now, it's not a great way to play it, but everything runs Doom. I think the first time they got a video of it, like what is it called, a replay? I forget what the term is. A demo to work. Like not literally like a test the game demo, like it's literally called a demo. Because, I don't know, that's the term. And they got it to work on, I think, the pregnancy test. And then someone was like, well, why stop there? Make the whole game playable on it. And it works. It's not meant to be a good way to play. It's just like an engineering test, you know? It's like, hey, but can it run Doom? The answer is probably yes. If it accepts inputs and is made recently. Like, Doom is one of the most bare bones, basic computer titles. And that's not to shit on it. It's actually the opposite. It's a lot of credit to Carmack and his team for making a game that literally runs on calculators powered by moldy potatoes. Not kidding, by the way. But I digress. The point is that Doom 1 and Doom 2 being playable on literally everything under the fucking sun did not stop Doom Eternal from selling well and people loving it. In fact, it probably kept Doom alive long enough for them to have their big Doom reboot in 2016. Probably brought more interest to it. And honestly, there's a lot of ports of Doom. I've seen some people want to play like weird ports of Doom, either for the classicness or whatever. And I know this is a very long Nintendo sucks segment, but it's Nintendo sucks, and they don't need to suck at this because they have the biggest leg up on this in history. Why can't you just have what PlayStation does, where you have your account? Okay, you bought, let's go back 10 years, right? Let's go back 10 fucking years to the PS3. Ready? This is going to be a lovely trip. PS3 came out. Oh, I bought, fuck, because this is bad, because the PS3 isn't really backwards compatible with the PS5. Shit. This sucks. Let's do the Xbox instead. How about that? That's a bit better, because Sony is also kind of fucking stupid. Let's go back to the 360 days, right? I bought Perfect Dark on the arcade. Probably still works today, honestly. And if it's not on, like, natively on the Series X, probably can emulate it through the Xbox One. Now, not sure how much that works. I know it's a 360 arcade game. In fact, I could even just try and see if I could find it. Perfect Dark is a dead franchise, by the way, which is sad. If I was Microsoft, I'd keep that shit alive. Oh no, actually, I will take that the fuck back. Welcome back to the Xbox menu. Hey, look, they have Perfect Dark and Perfect Dark Zero. On the 360, they have both as a part of the Rare Replay. I'm not sure what the difference between these two is. That would actually be cool to figure out. But, like, let's say you want to play Perfect Dark, because I do own Perfect Dark Zero. No. Let's see. Included, or you could just buy it. See, look how fucking nice this is. You could just either get Xbox Game Pass Ultimate, which I presume gives you all this stuff. Xbox One X Enhanced, by the way. Enhanced for what was at the time their best console. And oh, it is on Series X. Never mind. Look at this shit. This is the top games for Series X. Obviously, it's going to be the newest stuff. But, like, you see what I mean? Like, if I bought Perfect Dark, like, decades ago, right? At this point, literally a decade ago, probably. Not as part of the Rare Replay. Probably, like, just this. I could probably just still play it on my Series X, no problem. And that's what I mean. Like, Microsoft, despite having probably the worst library out of the 3 consoles, has it the best because they've made sure they have the infrastructure. So you buy a game like this ages ago, you could play it now, and at least you could buy it, for fuck's sake, and play it on modern consoles, modern hardware. Like, now, does it play well? Probably not as good as it did back then. Although, to be fair, it is a console shooter. Those really haven't aged since the days of, Halo, basically. But seriously, like, all these games exist. You could just play them. Oh my god, D4? No one remembers what D4 is. It's pretty tragic, honestly. But seriously, though, like, all these games that existed, you could play on the new consoles. Nintendo just does not have that. And then they have the nerve to say, well, piracy bad. Well, Nintendo, listen, I'm a pack rat. I'm a hoarder. I still have the same shit I had when I was 5. I still have stuffed animals from when I was 5. Still have games. Still have Lego, like actual built Legos from when I was 5 and 6 and 7. But that's an extraordinary case. I'm not the norm. People lose shit, right? One of my big things is that everybody I know had a complete collection of some ancient archaic console, but I stored it in my basement under pipes and they burst one winter. And that was the end of their exclusive, exotic, unique collection that in modern day would probably fetch them a shit ton of money, but let's not get into that. And the point I'm trying to make is that stuff happens. Shit happens in life, believe it or not. People lose their stuff, and it's tragic, but, like, at least these other fucking consoles can do all this stuff. Like, even the Wii U at the end had a surprise renaissance of fucking Neo Geo games. And you want to know what's crazy? They didn't even update the Wii U Virtual Console shop to have a Neo Geo section. It's just that's how the Wii U Virtual Console is. And for the life of me, seriously, for the life of me, I cannot understand why why Microsoft, same shit, why Nintendo cannot figure this out. Why it's not a major portion of their consoles going forward, especially in the digital era, right? Like, worst fucking case, you tell people, listen, we're not putting in a disk drive on the Switch, but you could buy this. And yeah, you have to rebuy it, right? Like, people are going to complain, oh, I own the disc still. But at least the option is there. If you really cared about playing Pikmin 2 on the Switch, because the Wii version of that fucking sucks throbbing dick, and I'm going to stand on that. If you really wanted to play Pikmin 2 with the GameCube adapter, like, it's a no fucking brainer, man. It's like, yeah, then you buy it. I mean, it sucks, but I'd rather buy 6 GameCube games at $10 a pop than most new $60 games. I'll be honest with you. I'd rather buy them and have a permanent digital-only version. Or we could go into the morality and the whatever of should I buy games I already own. That's not the question here. The point is you could do it if you really wanted to. So people who don't own them, oh wow, I heard Melee is this great game. They could at least go out and buy it. And Nintendo just doesn't get it. And it's really frustrating that they just don't get it. Nintendo, to me, as a person who's played so many of their games since I was a kid, has just not been the same since the Wii. And that's not to say their games are bad. In fact, I'd argue a lot of their games are better than ever, but that's just the thing. Like, whether the games turn out good or not, they just kind of throw out games. They do well, obviously, because the name Nintendo or Mario or Zelda or Pokemon is stapled to it. That doesn't mean that they're good games. It just means that they're backed by a company that everyone loves. And there's nothing wrong with loving them. It's just that there's room for improvement. And Nintendo has not lived up to that room for improvement. And they should. They need to. It's not just going to coast them by while Microsoft and Sony fight over who wants to charge for online. Nintendo charges for online now, and their online is trash. They don't have dedicated servers for their big games, right? Like, you'd think that out of all the fucking titles on the Switch that are online and going to be heavily played, you'd think they would at least have dedicated servers for most of them, and I don't think they do. I don't think they have them for Smash. The one game you think would benefit the most, I don't think it does. You would think that a lot of this stuff just wouldn't be the case. The Switch would natively accept Ethernet, which it does not. You need an adapter that's USB. The Switch would natively accept a lot of stuff, which it does not. And it's frustrating. beyond measure. Now, the one thing I agree with Nintendo on that they caught flack for recently is Nintendo bans brands from politically advertising in their games, specifically Animal Crossing New Horizons. And I have a sneaking suspicion this has to do with the Joe Biden island that they have in the game. And Nintendo basically summarized it as they don't want their games to be used as political ads. That's a heavy summarization. They don't want their games to be springboards for brands to do stuff. It doesn't say anything specifically, to my knowledge, about users repping certain brands, but it's specifically like they don't want the brands themselves to be doing it. And I don't necessarily mind that. It's more about corporations and companies than individual users. If they start cracking down individual users, I do kind of have a problem with that. But as it is now, I don't really necessarily have a problem with that. I mean, at least a couple of games will do this, especially the more online oriented ones. And I think that they just want to have a game that's fun. They don't want to have politics infect their shit. And I don't really blame them at all for it. I think that especially after the 2020 political season and just ever increasingly going on, politics just kind of infests everything. And I get a lot of people feel very strongly about a lot of things, and not everyone's a shit poster like me. And that's why I'm saying, that's why I mean, if you want to have a Joe Biden island yourself, fine. But I think having the actual, associations with these companies make the islands and brand and market them, I could understand why Nintendo just doesn't want that to be a thing that they platform. It doesn't matter how good or bad it is, I just think that it's fine for them to want to not be in it, period. And I don't think that that's a problem at all. And I mean, that's really all I had to say about that. I just don't think it's that big of a deal. Well, that was a very, very long segment. I think I'll do one or two more, and then I'll quickly grab some water. OBS is very nice. You can now pause recordings whenever. It's actually something I appreciate a lot about OBS in one of their latest updates. Let's see here. Assassin's Creed was teased to get a new Netflix show. Who knows when we'll see whatever that monstrosity will be. As much as I love the movie, I don't think it's a good movie. I just think it's a good Assassin's Creed movie, which even then, I feel like it could have been done better in a video game. I feel like if they had held it until after the whole Layla shit show is over, they could kind of make it into a new game. I get that having a movie is still screen presence, but I feel like it would have been better if that wasn't the case. But I digress. That could be a topic for another time. And I always say that about topics that will never get their other time. But anyway, Halo Infinite lost another director. I don't think it's any secret at this point that Halo Infinite is constantly running into difficulty. I think that's probably the biggest thing, is that Halo Infinite is having a very rough time in development. Chris Lee is no longer working on it. He left, and he is the second top director to leave in the past 2 years. He's been at 343 Undersea since 2008, a year after its founding. And since 2016, he has been studio partner, or partner studio head. And while he works at Microsoft still, he's stepped back from Halo. I don't know if they mention here why. I think he's just done with it. Yeah. I don't think so. And I'm not going to read it in its totality. But Microsoft has basically been forced to push Halo Infinite back. And that's kind of rough for them, because they need that, because they need it for their console. I mean, it was supposed to be the killer app for the Series X, and right now there is no killer app for the Series X. Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War has exclusive Zombies Onslaught mode for PS4 and PS5. Let's see, because we're coming up on a big topic, and I want to get some water before I talk about it. It's going to be a long one, so you might want to buckle in for that. I think it's here somewhere, right? I actually don't know where it is. Oh yeah, here we go. Only 1 week to go for Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War is unleashed upon the world. Following our announce of PlayStation exclusive Zombies Onslaught mode, we're back with even more benefits exclusive to PS4, PS5. It's kind of like what Battlefield was doing with Sony, I think, back in the day, or was it Microsoft? I can't even remember. Where one party gets exclusive stuff and the other one doesn't. Again, cool, I guess. I don't really play COD. I think COD sucks now, unironically. Not even trying to be the person who just hates on COD because it's COD. I actually stuck by COD a lot of years where it wasn't that good. And I just got tired of buying it. I thought it was shit. I didn't like Advanced Warfare. I thought it was probably the worst Call of Duty. I did not like Black Ops 3. And then after that, I just stopped buying them. I didn't buy World War II, and I didn't buy Infinite. Maybe I did, I forget. But I know I didn't play it, and I know I didn't buy it for full. I can't remember. But I know I didn't play it. Yeah, I think Modern Warfare 20, what the remaster was released then or some shit. I don't remember. And I didn't, it barely could convince me I didn't buy Black Ops 4. It barely could convince me to buy 2019, and I didn't even like Modern Warfare 2019. I thought it was fucking shit. I really found that I just buy Call of Duty because I want to try to pray that it will be like the good old days of COD, where I enjoyed myself on like Modern Warfare 2, Black Ops 1, Modern Warfare 3 especially, and Black Ops 2 as a runner-up. I enjoyed those four the most. I fucking love them. Some of my favorite gaming experiences I've ever done was playing a lot of that, like playing different modes. I love Team Defender and Modern Warfare 3, and they constantly get rid of it and never bring it back for literally no reason. And that's what I saw about this Black Ops. I guess this is going to turn into a COD segment, is that this Call of Duty game has some of the lowest amount of content of any Call of Duty game in history. For comparison, there was a video I was watching, I don't remember who it's by, not that I don't want to give them credit. It's a way bigger YouTuber, I'm sure you could fucking find it. It was like Black Ops Cold War is like no content or something. The game is like the fewest guns out of any new COD, the fewest maps, I think, at 8, besides maybe pre-Nuketown. It's really just empty, is the only way I describe the game, and I'm not sure how much of that is due to Big Event 2020, but seriously though, like, it's just an empty fucking game. It seems like bland. It seems almost like a parody of Call of Duty that they just wanted to have so they could release a COD this year instead of giving it the time and effort. And yeah, maybe not having a COD for 1 year and just supporting Modern Warfare 2019, which is still alive and going strong because the name Modern Warfare is on it. But, I mean, listen, I'm not going to say that obviously it did not hurt their bottom line. I'd argue it did the literal fucking opposite and massively boosted it. But I'm not going to sit here and say that what they did was comparable quality. I won't. I mean, it is a true sequel to Black Ops 1, believe it or not. Out of all fucking things, Black Ops 1 was a sequel to World at War, indirectly kind of, but it was confirmed, because Reznov is in it for sure. And I believe they mentioned Roebuck, if people even remember the World at War campaign. People probably don't. That was a long time ago, I understand. But seriously though, it's a sequel. Black Ops in itself is a sequel to World at War. Black Ops had 4 games in its timeline, at least. I don't know if Black Ops 4 is canon because it doesn't have a campaign, and that's really weird to me. But besides that, shit. Yeah, Black Ops Cold War would be the 5th or 6th, depending if Black Ops 4 has a story at all. I don't think it does. Black Ops Cold War would be the 6th game in that line of games, and it is a true sequel. Like, the campaign is canon to Black Ops 1, and surprisingly, apparently it's also canon to Modern Warfare 2019. So believe it or not, they actually did what I kind of wanted them to do with the campaign. But that's the thing, I don't buy COD games for campaign. Maybe someday when Modern Warfare 2019 is dirt fucking cheap, I'll buy it on like PlayStation 4, just so I could play it and have and basically use it as a glorified campaign machine. And Cold War would also be in that line, which is why I'm not in a big rush to get either of them, because I don't care. I mean, I have Modern Warfare 2019. It performs like shit on my computer. It uses a shit ton of my CPU and pretty much demands me to have nothing else open, which is basically worse than the Division 2 almost. But I digress. What was I going to say now? Yeah, I don't like COD anymore. That's pretty much the end of that fucking segment. I just don't like COD. Alright. after this, we're going to have probably the biggest topic on the podcast in a long time. There are a couple other things here. There's apparently Red Dead Redemption, the Outlaws collection getting leaked on Amazon. We'll have Red Dead Remastered and Enhanced Red Dead 2. That's not been confirmed yet. It's just a rumor, much like that Pokemon triple version remake re-release that I was talking about earlier. The World Ends With You will get a new sequel, Neo Twoey, in true fashion, 14 years after the original game came out. The original The World Ends With You is actually one of those DS games that got ported to the Switch, believe it or not. I think I even own it. If I don't, I remember wanting to get it. But the point is that I think because they're trying to canonize The World Ends With You with Kingdom Hearts, this is like their step to do it, right? Like, they don't want this game to die on its own. They'd rather lump it together with Kingdom Hearts, which, I mean, from Square Enix, that's pretty smart, actually. I actually think that's a good idea. It's a good way to bridge two franchises, especially after Dream Drop Distance had The World Ends With You characters in it pretty much out of nowhere for no reason. And I, in my opinion, felt like because they probably had shared developers. And I'm not going to look up to figure that out. I'm pretty sure I'm going to assume that's the case. They shared developers. It was like a cool little thing. It definitely wasn't like a super huge part of the story that I can remember, but it was cool because I never played the original. And then I think they re-released the original like later that year or something. But I just said Square Enix did something smart. We come back. I'm going to talk about how Square Enix lost a shit ton of money on Marvel's Avengers and undersold. Alright, and with that, I'm back. Like I said, I love the pause feature on OBS. It's fucking amazing. It's so good. But what I'm going to talk about now is Square Enix and their new favorite project, Marvel Avengers, because this came out recently over the last couple of weeks. Marvel Avengers launched, was it September or was it October? I don't even care. The game is trash. But more importantly than the game being trash, it didn't sell well. And that's probably the worst thing that a game can really do, especially when they poured a ton of money into it. So, as of the time of some article that I don't have on me, which I guess I should probably fucking pull up, because if I don't, I feel bad. Well, let's see. It's really bad when Square Enix lost. Here we go. What do you like, CBR? Let's do CBR. I've used them before. And I can even pull it up on the video. Here you go. CBR, good friends. Marvel's Avengers reportedly resulted in a $63 million loss for Square Enix. $63 million loss. Now, if you don't know anything about this, this is a game I've been really following, because I've been a big fan of Square Enix for pretty much most of my life. I draw a lot of ire and annoyance with Nintendo as a publisher more than I do a developer. But when it comes to Square, it's mostly that they develop trash lately. And I'm not a fan of a lot of the stuff that they do. And Marvel's Avengers, like, again, just Marvel in general, and by extension Disney, has been like at the peak of their money-making ventures. Just the definition of a soulless conglomerate out to only make a shit ton of your money by plugging and chugging out nostalgic or sometimes empty videos and empty movies that just are meant to pander to how good you felt back in the day. And superhero movies. I mean, to say that the MCU has not had a profound impact for eternity on the concept of telling a long-form story through multiple movies and just, it's just outlandish. I think if you watch them all, it's something like 36 hours, maybe more, of straight movies. I think for centuries to come, we'll be citing this. Obviously, I won't be around to verify that, neither will you, but specifically, it is outlandish, the amount of shit that they've got. It makes perfect sense why they'd want to have a video game, or in this case, multiple video games to cash in on this. And Marvel's Avengers was definitely up there with like Spider-Man 2018 in terms of games that they really wanted to push to make a lot of money based off of the popularity of these franchises. It's kind of like how when they changed Spider-Man's face to be more like Tom Holland in the 2018 remastered version of Spider-Man, or the 2020 remastered version of Spider-Man, it's because they want that iconicism. I don't even know if that's a word. They want that iconic look. They want that recognizable feel, because they want you to know in the back of your mind that there's movies out there that you can consume, and that's probably the biggest thing they want. Square has been working on this game, I think, since like 2016. I'm pretty sure that Crystal Dynamics, as soon as they were done with the Tomb Raider games, immediately put all of their efforts behind this because they wanted it to be their big next new tie-in. Well, all is not milk and honey. I think by the same token that EA and the Star Wars license has kind of come under a lot of scrutiny and fire because of their botching of the Battlefronts, this game also has kind of come under fire for being shit and just having nothing and being a soulless Destiny clone. And I'm going to tell you, Destiny was not exactly a game I'd want to emulate. Maybe the menu system, I guess, is popular and it's easy to understand and it's pretty universal between console and PC. Well, I guess that's cool. But you don't want to emulate Destiny. And this game really just is like the definition of a looter shooter. It's pretty bad. They have, as you can see here, it's about, the game cost about $100 million to make and only sold $3 million. There you go. Even get the sauce on this dude. There you go. Only sold about 3 million copies and 100 million. That's disgusting. That's really kind of bad. And I don't see it getting any better. I mean, if you followed other games that have been like this, they don't get better. They kind of get worse over time. And in fact, oh crap. Can I pull this up? Replace the URL with its title? No, where's the copy link? There you go. In a Forbes article, I don't know if it's linked here. Where is it? It is. It's a Forbes article. Avengers dips below 1,000 players on PC, causing matchmaking problems. This was about a month and a half ago. But the point still remains that Avengers is fucking trash. And it's trash like not even 3 months after it came out. Square Enix, what the fuck? What did you do? And I know what you did. But really, though, really, I mean this, by the way. They killed Deus Ex for this. Like, this is pretty much the reason we're not getting a new Deus Ex. At all. And for this to be as bad as it is... See, I said a lot of stuff about this game, right? I said that this game better be worth it. Better be worth the payoff, better make Marvel fans cream, and more importantly, it better make them empty their wallets. And honestly, I care more about that than anything about this game. This game could be fucking garbage, right? This game could be Sword and Shield levels of fucking trash. But at least, if it sells, it validates the sacrifice that we had to make with them shelving and ruining Deus Ex. I sincerely mean that, mind you. And the problem with it is that I don't think it's going to do that. And I mean, fuck me. Anthem, remember when I laughed at Anthem for literally like a straight week. I really did. It's a video on my channel. It's one of the higher viewed videos I've made in the last couple of years. There's a couple hundred views of me laughing at Anthem and how badly they ruined Anthem from the start. From so many problems with it over the last like half decade, you know. I laughed at it, but I'm not laughing so much at this. Like, it's funny, but I personally lost something because of it. I love Deus Ex. Human Revolution was such a fun ass game to play. I played it through even after the fact. You know, it's fun. I think, and every time I play, I find something new. It's a very enjoyable long form game. And then you get the shit that's Mankind Divided, and then they kill the franchise. You know, Sleeping Dogs is dead because of shit like this. I believe Sleeping Dogs is Square Enix. Let me make sure before I accuse them of it. Oh, please let me be right. I'm pretty sure I'm right. Yes, publisher Square Enix. Sleeping Dogs was killed because of a bunch of stupid shit, and they still sell Sleeping Dogs, but that game came out almost a decade ago. as crazy as it sounds, me playing that game just to fuck around came out literally a decade ago. And it's not getting a sequel ever. You know, I don't know what happened to United Front. They might have been disbanded. But seriously though, like, it's tragic to think that Square Enix can mismanage funds. Imagine how much Yoshi P puts in effort, puts in fucking work carrying the Final Fantasy name on his fucking back after how bland 15 was. At least 15 sold, right? Can't shit on it in the sales department. Can only say it's a bland, boring, linear game. But at least it's sold, unlike 13 and all the other games, right? It might not be a good game. It's the opposite of Lightning Returns to me. It's a shit game, but it's sold. Or it's an average game. I won't totally destroy it. It's good for the first half, and then some of the post game. But the story turns to shit. But seriously, like, for them to actually fuck this up on this caliber, I want to remind you. Let me see if I could find this. Let me see if I could actually find this. Let's see. Can I find it? Oh man, we gotta look. I gotta find like a whole group of Deus Ex. I gotta find like a whole group of Deus Ex things. Fuck it, sure. Congrats. Let's see. Deus Ex. And I've come back to this article time and time again. Deus Ex Mankind Divided had microtransactions out the ass. And I think here somewhere he... Oh wow, this is worse than I remember. After DLC items are transferred, you can never use them again, even on another playthrough. Wow, could you imagine that shit? Could you imagine, like, every single time you boot up a new save of a game that has pre-order DLC, every other game I know, you get it, like, right at the start, right? Like, it just gets plunked in your inventory right at the start of the game. What the fuck? I forgot about this. This game was a fucking mess, honestly. And I know I played it, like, a year and a half late, but God, it's a fucking mess. And this was Square Enix's idea, by the way. Eidos did not want to put this in. This was Square Enix's idea to heavily monetize the shit out of Deus Ex and to basically ruin the fucking game. I don't know if there's any other things on here. Let me see if I can find anything. Why is it not? Oh, Christ. This is not what I wanted at all. Here we go. This is the other article. I found it. Holy shit. Eurogamer revealed that Square Enix had put Deus Ex on hiatus after the well-regarded Mankind Divided failed to generate the level of sales needed to grow the series into a mainstream franchise. This was your first fucking mistake. This was literally prima facie first mistake. I don't know if I used that correctly. Deus Ex will never be a mainstream franchise. It's too difficult, has too many mechanics. It cannot be a mainstream franchise. End of story. It won't. It plain won't. You either make it so simple it's no longer Deus Ex, or you just don't do it. And that's the honest truth. Not every game can be a mainstream franchise. Not every game. But they could still be good. They could still be profitable. They just won't be Final Fantasy 15 levels of profitable. And what they wanted to do was, as stated here, was to create an ongoing, expanding, and connected game world built across a generation of core Deus Ex games, including a third concluding entry for the narrative arc started in 2011's Human Revolution. This did not come to pass, and following Mankind Divided's underwhelming sales, they became tight-lipped regarding future prospects. While it's not been canceled, mind you, this article was written in 2017. Actually, hold on, what the fuck? This is, we're on the tomorrow this article will turn 3, by the way. Let's see. He did confirm that no Deus Ex game is in the works, and Eidos Montreal has always developed Deus Ex, and the issue is we do not have limitless resources. Where do you think these limitless resources were going, mind you? They were going to this piece of shit. To this fucking piece of shit. And it's depressing. It really is fucking depressing. I don't know. This is a long segment. I know it's a long segment. But it really kind of matters a lot to me. Because they put in so much effort to make a Destiny clone. And maybe if the year was 2015, I feel like this game would have been fine. Right? 2015, what was the Marvel movies? When were the Marvel movies in 2015? There you go. It even has a Wikipedia page. Fuck that. 2015 would have been Civil War? Where's Civil War? 2016. Let's give them the credit. Let's say this game came out in the peak of Civil War. Yeah, it would have probably been better received. Black Panther. They're actually making another one after Chadwick Boseman's very unfortunate passing. Truly, it is a loss, because I actually think Black Panther had good potential, not just because black people in it, but also just in general by being a good story. But seriously, like, I think the problem they're going to have with the MCU, and I, of course, don't mean to imply that they won't make money on these movies, because of course they will. People just go see them because of the name and brand attached to them. But I think the problem that they're going to have is that now they've concluded their big arc, right? Like, Captain Marvel really came out a month before? God, they really were flying under the radar to fit her in for Endgame, weren't they? But, like, I remember watching this. I watched Iron Man 2. I thought Iron Man 2 was fucking trash. But I watched this movie, and I was like, you know what? That's fucking cool. And that was, like, the only movie I really watched out of all of this for the longest until Black Panther. Those like, the only ones I cared about. And then, obviously, I've seen bits and pieces of the other ones since then. But, like, when you really consider it, right? Like, they've had sometimes 2 movies a fucking year for this shit. They had 3 in this year because they've rebooted Spider-Man. Like, legitimately, though, their big, like, 13-year plan culminated already. And then they had, like, another movie after it. And there's a bunch of other stuff that they're gonna fucking make. And obviously, they're far from done. But, like, seriously, though, Avengers, I think, has maybe passed a little bit. It's definitely on a waning period. It's definitely not improving or getting as big as it was. This game should have come out, like, right before Infinity War, or maybe in between Infinity War and Avengers. Because now, Avengers is kind of done. People got their natural conclusion. They don't necessarily want to watch it a ton. I mean, I'm sure it's still one of the most watched movies daily, but, like, it's not as hype as it was a year ago. And this game, it just did not do it. And for Square to really say, to report it's doing this poorly, to have matchmaking issues on the game of this magnitude with this much money and branding thrown behind it is fucking disgustingly tragic. And I just weep, because I know 14 definitely funded this game. And I know that fucking... And that's not to say it was the sole funding, obviously, but it definitely funded this game. I know for a fact that 14 is a fucking pay pig cash cow for Square Enix. It prints fucking money. And while they need money to develop new stuff for it, I do know that consistently over the years, I think they've implied that they get leached of money. And, I mean, that's to be expected. I mean, they do work for Square Enix. Like, they do get to take a cut. But this is what Square Enix does with the money they get from all their successful games. They take all that money, they put it into a piece of shit, and they throw it in the furnace. And that's it. And it's hard to watch. It really is. When Deus Ex Mankind Divided, if you go on fucking... there you go. Go on Mankind Divided. Let's go over here. If you go over here and you scroll down here, criticism was focused on the brevity of its campaign and the handling of its themes. I'm going to let you in on a little secret. You could literally Google this. It's literally a word in the dictionary. Brevity is a very fancy, nice way of saying short. It's literally what it means. Short. Concise and exact usage, or shortness of time. The game is fucking short. It's like half of what you'd actually want and expect. It's pretty bad. And for them to make a game that feels like half of Mankind or Human Revolution is fucking bad. And I'm pretty sure there's a future segment down here as well. Oh yeah, remember when people got mad they used the word apartheid? Wow. That was a thing that happened. Pre-order campaign could pick items from each tier. Yeah, I think it's here somewhere. I'm not going to go into it. It topped game sales charts, but had a weaker debut because of a lower install base on consoles than its predecessors. Mankind Divided was the third best-selling game in August. It's whatever. Eido shifted to work towards Tomb Raider, an untitled licensed game, which, yeah, was Marvel Avengers, as I told you. They kind of took that shit away. And they don't say it's canceled, but Cyberpunk comes out in literally 2 weeks, and Cyberpunk is going to do to Deus Ex 3 what what Ghost of Tsushima is going to inevitably do to Assassin's Creed Japan. It's going to fucking ruin it before it even is announced, let alone developed and made. But I could go on a whole list of reasons why I think that's bad. I think Square Enix really fucked it by making the game probably boring and bland, and once you played it through, and I've seen a fair chunk of gameplay of a couple of the characters, like, it seems like a very basic and bland game, and then that's it. And then you play it, and there's no reason to stick around. It's not a very compelling game. It's not like, you know, a lot of games are open-ended and have tons of dialogue or ways you could go through the story. I think they released a game that would have been cool in in like 2008, 2011. They released it in 2020 as like a major game, and then they didn't even put it on like the console. Like, imagine if this was at least a launch title for the next-gen consoles. Then at least I could say, okay, well, you know, the draw is that it shows the power of the new consoles, and it was specifically developed to have a big, strong presence. This is on PS4. This is on Xbox One. This is nothing. This is a fucking drop in the ocean. And considering that the same year you have titans like Doom Eternal and Ghost of Tsushima, why the fuck would anyone want to spend their time on this, especially, again, in the middle of a big event? Why would anyone want to do that at all? It's mind-boggling, to say the least. I mean, people are going to buy it, right? I got nothing against people buying it. The same way I got nothing against people buying Sword and Shield. And I use that as like my de facto modern example of a fucking awful game marred by awful design decisions and terrible development practices. But seriously though, like, why? Why can't Square Enix just make good games again? I hated that 15 turns into a linear fucking game at the end. Like, honestly, if it wasn't for 16 and 14, I would not care about Final Fantasy or Square Enix. I really think that Square Enix, like, Bravely Default 2 probably will be pretty good. You know, they have occasional good games, but it's mostly like their side games. And they're killing their side gigs. They're killing them in favor of games that don't work out. Now, Tomb Raider apparently did well. That's the origination of me saying, I don't care about this game, but I hope it does well. Tomb Raider's reboot trilogy apparently did well, and especially the original. I will say I like Tomb Raider 2013. I think it had a lot of stupid instant death and quick time events, but other than that, like, I was pretty hyped for Crystal Dynamics, and I thought that was pretty fucking cool. The way they took an old franchise and they fixed it up, and then they got rid of all the dumb weird shit like water physics to show off the curves of Lara, because that was fucking weird. But yeah, I digress. At this point, it just makes me sad. I get mad, and then my madness turns to sadness. You know, it's tragic. I just wish we could skip past the fact that Mankind Divided is probably one of the weakest entries to follow one of my favorite games ever. Have another 2 games with Adam Jensen and call it a day. And just not kill the franchise, right? But just conclude this awesome-ass trilogy that they started. And then we could just be happy. But instead, you know, why would you ever be happy in life, I guess is what I'm saying. Now, there's a rumor, and it's a rumor from 4chan, so I'm not going to give it a ton of clout, but it's a rumor that Square Enix may sell off its Western division to Ubisoft after this disappointment. This is only a rumor. I don't think they will. I don't think that would improve Deus Ex either. Because when Square Enix does good work, they do good fucking work. And that's why I hate them. Because they do good work, and I know they can do good work. Even 15 was good work up to the point where it stopped being Versus 13. But I blame that on Tabata, and them just trying to scrub out the game that they said was coming for so long in one form or another. So, I mean, whatever. I could bitch about 15 all day. That's nothing. Moving on, Mass Effect Legendary Edition has been announced. It will be coming out in spring of 2021. It will have all the DLCs and it's the usual shit. It's a fucking trilogy remaster, but I talk about at least one of these every fucking podcast, sometimes two. But it's not a bad thing, but you know what to expect. Do I need to go into it? Capcom had a bunch of leaks, specifically, and this is apparently very vetted, so I give credit to that. So just to go down the list, I'm not going to dump a whole bunch of information about this, but Capcom for the next couple of years is basically rumored to be working on these games. Street Fighter 6 for third quarter fiscal year 2020, Dragon's Dogma 2 for Q2 fiscal year 2020, or I'm sorry, did I say 2020 for fucking Street Fighter 6? Fiscal year 2022. Dragon's Dogma 2 for quarter 2 fiscal year 2022, Resident Evil 4 remake for quarter 4 fiscal year 2022, Resident Evil Hank for quarter 4 fiscal year 2024. So who even knows what Resident Evil Hank is? Resident Evil Outbreak for quarter 4 fiscal year 2021. Monster Hunter 6 for quarter 2 fiscal year 2023. Biohazard Apocalypse for quarter 3 fiscal year 2023. Monster Hunter NSG, I forget, it's like something stories. I don't know what that is. There's no quarter, but it's fiscal year 2022, and then Shield, which I don't know if anyone knows what that is yet, for quarter 3 fiscal year 2021. Now, obviously, none of these games have been announced. Not even Resident Evil 4 Remake has been confirmed. Now, we already know that next year, Resident Evil 8 is coming out. I forget, is it only on PS5? Let's take a fucking look. Let's see. Yes, it is only on next gen. So it'll only be on PS5 and Series X and Series S, as well as Windows, obviously. It is a direct sequel to Resident Evil 7. I want to know what the fuck Chris is doing. I think everyone wants to know. Why can't this man just retire and have a good life? And you know, I think Resident Evil at some point needs to have a passing of the torch for a lot of these characters. I think it'll be pretty cool, though. I mean, now that I think about it, I kind of want to get it. I hate it. I hate that I want to get it. I really don't want to pay $70, but I'm a Resident Evil fan. Yeah, I think it'll be a weird fucking story no matter what happens. I just hope they don't do something like, oh, Chris literally becomes the villain. Because if you remember, Resident Evil Revelations 1 had that weird trailer where, like, Jill was interrogating a Chris-looking figure in a chair. And then the real Chris shows up, and I think they start pointing guns at each other or some shit. And that was for the DS, the 3DS back in, 2011, 2012. It was a very early game on the 3DS. They had the Circle Pad Pro thing for it. And that trailer actually ended up having, like, nothing to do with the actual Resident Evil Revelations. I'm not sure if it was more of a tech demo than anything. And, yeah, I'm not sure. I think it was just more to draw hype. Because it's like, if I could actually find this image really quickly, I'm going to show this to you. It's one of my favorite things that came from Resident Evil 6. As soon as it loads. Oh, did it load? Oh, shit, yo, that's fucking fast. This picture right here, as much of a shit show as Resident Evil 6 is, and as much as I don't like the game, there was something really, really cool about scenes like this from the game. I think Resident Evil 6 kind of ends up being, like, the best, like, movie-style game I've played. Even though I didn't like the game at first. Now, it's not a fun game to play, but it's at least a fun game to watch the events unfold. And, I mean, I give it credit, right? Like, it wasn't the worst game ever. It just wasn't Resident Evil 5 levels of fun, and it wasn't Resident Evil 4 levels of fun. It was clearly meant to be a co-op experience, which is cool. I just think that Resident Evil, the mainline game, should be single player, and even Capcom agrees, which is why they go to this new style. I'm not a fan of the new PT first person style. I prefer the Resident Evil 4 style myself. But whatever. I mean, Resident Evil 4, there's a reason why it's probably one of, like, the most influential and remembered games in all of history. But there's something very hype about this picture, right? Like, you got two different storylines of Resident Evil kind of clashing here. And it's kind of cool. It was a cool scene. Yeah, they don't obviously shoot each other. It was more of a Leon's, like, you know, kick, you know, Leon's martial arts kick style versus Chris Redfield, I punch boulders for a living, fighting off. And it was a cool fight scene. There's a lot of cool scenes in Resident Evil 6 like that. And I like Resident Evil. I do. The story about it might be cheesy, even from the literal first game. They might not have taken the remakes seriously enough to have like a definitive de facto canon version of events, which is what they should have done with all three remakes, and they blew it on every single fucking one. I mean, Resident Evil 3 does have that. It's the most boring ending, in my opinion, of Resident Evil 3, if you ask me. I think the best ending of Resident Evil 3 is where Barry shows up, which I think Nikolai survives in that ending. I could be wrong. I don't remember. It's been a long time since I played Resident Evil 3. I don't even have that save data anymore. But seriously, though, like, Resident Evil 3 is such a disappointment. I think that's the biggest thing I could inject. Resident Evil 3 was not nearly as good as the 2 remake. But 2's remake should have had that. You know, it should have had a canon version. Even if it's like Claire A, Leon B, which is what most people interpret it as the canon version of events. Like, it would have been cooler to have that. You know, it just to have, hey, here's like the de facto storyline that everyone knows. And instead they didn't do that. They wanted to do weird shit, and I don't know why. But I digress. I think this scene right here, it's perfect. It draws, it's hype, it's cool, it's hip. If I ever go back and make thumbnails for the Resident Evil 6 playthrough, I will most certainly use this. Someday I'll replay Resident Evil 6. It's probably not a bad game when you get like all the super upgrades, right? I don't know. I just feel like Resident Evil 4 was the best in the series. I don't know. That might just be me. It's a lot of people. I definitely do like the classic game styles. I think there's a way like to take Resident Evil 3 and make that engine into a really good one. But obviously, you know, going back to what I was talking about over here. Sorry. You know, Street Fighter 6, that's to be expected. Street Fighter is a big series. Dragon's Dogma 2. Dragon's Dogma is like kind of a fan favorite. It was fun when I played. I never beat it, but it was fun to play. I don't really think Resident Evil 4 deserves a remake. I think it's a modern enough game, especially since they re-released it on literally every fucking console. In fact, is it on the Switch yet? Well, let's do this first. Let's do this. Hey, would you look at this if I bring this up again? It is on it's on the what is this, Xbox 360? I know it's on Xbox 360, but I guess like online you can only buy it for these. I mean, look at all the shit that they have on here, right? Shit, they got all the Resident Evils for like $4, $5, $7, except Code Veronica, because fuck you if you want to pay. If you want to play Code Veronica, eat shit. It costs more than the game released last year. Wow. Wow, they really hate Code Veronica. HD collection. People shit on this collection. I'll be honest with you. I know people shit on it in 2012, right? But since you can't really find these games at all, I give it credit, right? Like, I'd rather play a botched port. It wasn't even that bad from what I remember playing of it. Homecoming, fuck that. Homecoming was cool because I got the platinum for it. Still on your Xbox One console plus? Yeah, okay. But yeah, no, this shit is on like every fucking console. I'm not even kidding. It really is. Google. How many consoles is this shit on? It's disgusting. GameCube, PS2, Windows, Wii, iOS, Zeebo, PS3, 360, Android, PS4, Xbox One. Yeah, it is on the Switch. Holy fuck. My god. I think it's on... It's not on Xbox? Oh, 360. Fuck it, whatever, right? 2005? 2005, yeah. It came to Xbox One X. Oh, here we go. I remember getting it on the 360 when it came out. It came to PC twice, mind you, because they originally released it, and then they re-released it again for the HD version. Worldwide, like this game has been ported. It came out last year, okay. This game has been ported to hell and back. Like, this is probably one of the most ported games Capcom has released since, like, Marvel vs. Capcom 2. I'm just gonna stick on that until someone proves me wrong one day, because I really do feel it's ridiculous. I love the Wii version, by the way. The Wii version was fucking sick. I enjoyed that point and click action. I thought that was fucking cool. But seriously though, like, I don't really think this game needs a remake, especially, like, it feels like at least Final Fantasy VII, I could say, needs a remake, because the original is so outdated and different compared to how the whole mythology around 7 evolved. But, like, I really do feel like Final Fantasy VII, or Resident Evil 4 is just a modern game. It's one of those games that did not age very poorly, I don't think. In fact, I'd argue it ages better than some of its more modern Resident Evil clones. And it inspired so many games. Third-person shooters, like, existed before it. This was, like, the one that really drew a lot of people to it, I feel. And I just feel like they're going to do the same shit they did with the other remakes. They're going to reimagine it. They're going to remove elements that made it cool. Especially after watching Resident Evil 3 remake. You know, they're going to remove shit that made it fun and interesting and unique. And, I mean, obviously the original is so fucking ported you could play it wherever. I just feel like Code Veronica would have benefited first, right? It makes logical sense, I think, in the minds of a lot of people. It's like, hey, let's get the, the old school games all ported. You got the Resident Evil 1 remake that they remastered, Resident Evil 0 they remastered, then they re-released them together. You have 2 and 3 getting their remakes. It makes sense, right? Like, those are the first 5 games that established everything for the series to come. And they all canonically take place in the same year. 0 takes place 2 days before Resident Evil 1. Resident Evil 2 takes place, I think, 2 months after Resident Evil 1, and 3 takes place before and after Resident Evil 2. And, I mean, look how much they cut out of 3. I think it's kind of disgusting how much they did, but whatever. And then Code Veronica takes place literally at the end of that year, like 2 months after Raccoon City. And I think it would be cool, because Code Veronica is kind of a weird game, and it would be cool. But whatever, who cares? I think that the whole Reach for the Moon engine, which I think is what it's called, is a very awesome thing to have. I think it's a really fucking cool engine for remaking the old games, and I would just keep doing that, right? Like, and whatever. This is getting off topic, and this podcast is already too long. Resident Evil Hank, I have no clue what that is at all. I don't know if they mean hunk or if there's some other meme here. Outbreak and Biohazard Apocalypse. I don't know if they're remaking Outbreak, like files 1 and 2. If this is like the file 3 that people thought was coming out ages ago. If this is both. Or if whatever it is, if it's a reimagining remake of Resident Evil Outbreak. Maybe they are just trying to cash in on what people wanted like a decade ago. Better late than never, I guess. And Biohazard Apocalypse, I've seen people say is like a battle royale. I don't know if anyone's talked about that. I didn't really look into this that much, honestly, because it's a rumor. And the rest of them I don't really care about. Monster Hunter's big again, and they have the movie coming out, and no one knows what S.H.I.E.L.D. is from when I looked. So yeah, I really don't have much else to say about that. I just personally like that there's a lot of Resident Evil love coming out in the next few years, even if I don't agree with most of it. 4 games of Resident Evil is a fuck ton, dude. That series is not going anywhere. And it shouldn't. I think Resident Evil is one of the most influential series in not only gaming history, but media in general. I think that a lot of people cite Resident Evil as bringing back the zombie genre, revitalizing it with a very, like, yeah, it was cheesy even back in the 90s, but, you know, fuck it, it was cool. It's still cool to this day. I think mansions are the perfect setting for games like that. I just, you know how I always feel about Resident Evil games. They always go in the same formula. You start at the beginning of the game, it's cool as fuck, you don't know what's going on, you're alone, trying to find supplies, solve weird puzzles. By the end of the game, it's a linear fucking mess in a laboratory or some other established setting, you know, where they clearly define and say what happened, and then you fight a big bad, and it's an action movie at the end, which is, I mean, it's a winning formula. It's not like it failed them at any point in the 50 times that they've done it. I just think that it would be cool to have a game that focuses mostly on that survival element and is not like one of those games where you have to run away from the monster the whole time. I think that's lame. Even Nemesis, like the originator of those styles of games, besides maybe Clock Tower, did not make you do that. You could fight Nemesis if you were good and had the supplies. I digress. The Resident Evil 4 is an influential game. It made third-person shooting, like, cool. It was like, the horror was you don't know, like, everything that's outside of your vision you can't see, you know? Fucking cool. I digress. Okay. There's a new 007 game in the works. I cannot believe I did not mention this at the start of the podcast. Holy shit. How did I not do this? I'll actually take you to... Fuck it. I'll take you to the fucking page. This is so fucking cool. Imagine this shit. I think Legends was the last Bond game that ever was released. Yeah, the latest release was 007 Legends in 2012. And for those of you who don't know, Bond games are a big part of my childhood. As a kid, my cousin kind of introduced me to first-person shooters in general when he would play Agent Under Fire. He introduced this to me. It was fucking cool. Here's the likeness of English actor Andrew Bicknell. He kind of looks like Bond, though, a little bit. Or Pierce Brosnan. It really almost... It looks like... You can tell it's not, but it kind of looks like him. But seriously, like... This shit is cool. I don't own the original GoldenEye because it's on the N64, but I think I own The World Is Not Enough. Is it on PlayStation? Yeah, it is. It is, okay. I do own The World Is Not Enough. I don't know where I put it, though, because my PlayStation 1 library is kind of out of space. But, like, this game was fucking amazing to me. I love this game. I love this game. I truly do. I'm sad it's not one of those games that has a re-release. But seriously, like, fuck it. I'll click on their website. Fuck you, IGN. Hitman's developers are going to make this. It was a rumor, or I think Telltale expressed interest in making a Bond game ages ago, but you know how the Telltale formula has not aged well. This is fucking cool, man. This is cool. This is really like one of those things that makes me feel happy inside. I just hope it's not like full-on Hitman, you know what I mean? Like, don't make it full-on Hitman, because Hitman's a hard series to get into, you know? It's a very, like, I just kind of want, like, a normal third-person shooter. The only thing that makes me a little weird is this. I can't highlight. Very first James Bond origin story. Now, I don't doubt the Hitman devs. It's just origin stories are very, you know, weird. I never really like them usually. But in their favor and in their credit, IO Interactive has kept Hitman alive. They put that shit on their back. And I really am fucking hyped for this. I know we're years out from seeing this, but man, I'm happy for this. This and Hogwarts is like gonna be the revitalization of movie video games. And it's sad when you have fucking stinkers like this that can't do the job. But this could possibly do it. And that's fucking cool. Hitman 3's out? Oh shit, is it out? No, digital pre-order. When is it coming out? Oh, yeah, I figured I knew it was soon. IO, man, like, let me be real for a minute here. IO, I'm gonna get this game. Not that game. I am getting that game too. I'm gonna get this game. Please, just make it good. Make it... You wanna know another good Bond game I like? The game's narrative continues in Nightfire? Wait a minute, really? Oh, because Zoe Nightshade's in Nightfire. I don't think it really carries too much from Agent Under Fire. I played both of those games so many times. I don't think it does. Characters voiced by Maxwell Coldfield. Where is it? Can I get a link to the fucking next game, please? Where's Everything or Nothing? Why can I not find Everything or Nothing on here? Oh my god. Everything, make it like Everything or Nothing. I fucking loved Everything or Nothing. This game was fucking crazy, man. I loved Everything or Nothing. This was the last game my cousin really played from Bond, and it's also kind of the last Bond game I actually enjoyed. Now, Quantum of Solace wasn't bad. It just wasn't good. and I'm gonna say it in the exact mannerism. This shit was cool. Like, this is one of the games in 2021 I want to do a playthrough of, because it's such a cool game, and you had the actual characters returning. You know, it was crazy. The only thing is that it's unlike Nightfire, which has like stages, parts of each mission, and is a rather short game. This game is like segments of like it's hard to explain. I'm not even gonna bother. But I fucking loved it. Wait, the Game Boy Advance version of this came out like months ahead of the other one? That's weird. That's weird. This game was cool, though. Alright. I kind of... I maybe gleamed a little bit too much. I might have fucking shown a little too much. Fucking cool, man. A new Bond game! In like 2020! Probably for release after Hitman 3, which is totally fine. Probably like 2021, 2022. A new fucking Bond game by people who know how to make stealth games, man. I mean, just even if it's not even a good game, right? Fucking cool that they would even do it. Just amazing that they would even do it is cool. Is like my inner child is like happy. I'm happy that this is a thing. I'm fucking happy. This is so cool. It really is. And I wish my cousin could just play this, man. If it's a good game, I want him to just try it for like one afternoon, one evening, because I know he would fucking love it. He would love it. It would be so awesome. That's why I don't want it to be too hard, because if it's Hitman levels of hard, he wouldn't like it. And it would be too much of an investment for him. He's moved on in his life. I have not. I never moved on since I was 5. It's pretty bad. But seriously, it would be fucking cool. I hope it's good. I hope it's not too difficult. I hope it's you know, you could have your 007 difficulty, your Platinum Agent difficulty, fine. But man, I fucking... Oh... I mean, it would be cool if there's some levels that are Hitman-esque, though. You know what I mean? That would be fine. I wouldn't hate that. I'm sorry. Okay, I think I can move on now. But one of my friends posted this in the Discord. I'd seen it earlier that day. I was in a bad mood. I'll admit. I wasn't really feeling it. So I was like, I don't really care about it. Whatever. Fuck it. I just didn't really care. So... But now I do care. I'm in a good mood today. I'm looking forward to it so much, man. Other than that, let's see. PlayStation boss Jim Ryan says investing in new IPs is very risky. Now, this is kind of one of those things. Jim Ryan has been making a lot of claims that I'm kind of like, yeah, you know, that's a little bit of a unique one. Infamously... And I'm going to pull this up, too, because I always quote this, and I never fucking remembered where it was from. So I need to actually, like, save this somewhere. Jim Ryan, ages ago, and by ages ago, I mean, like, June of 2017, said this. And this is not a bad thing. It's not like it's a damning thing. But he said this box right here. And I'm pretty sure it's not what he actually meant. But considering what Sony has kind of done to the PS1, 2, and 3 libraries in terms of literally no backwards compatibility, it's pretty... It kind of holds up, I think. He looks at PS1 and PS2 games. They look ancient. Why would anybody play this? You know, okay. I mean, they look old. A lot of those games have been re-released, they've been remastered, you know, but not all of them can get that love. A lot of them are only kept alive by people who give a shit about them, you know? But there's a reason why. Because games like this, in my mind, hold a better place and a better position, and probably in a lot of other people who may or may not remember these games, they're better than this. I'm going to use this game as a benchmark for shit games for eternity. I hope you know that. It's like right above Anthem in my mind. And that Anthem has a lot of room down there in hell. But seriously, like games like this, I would still play in 2020. I love this game. I think it's a fucking amazing game. It's a masterpiece in my mind. And this is this is why I want these games to be re-released, especially physically, because I love having physical medium. Fuck digital. Seriously, I love physical mediums. But, you know, games like this, there's a lot on this list, actually, as you can see. There's a lot. I think Sean Connery also passed away, by the way. So I rest in peace to him, because this game was literally made to be about, like, harken back to the good old days of, like, OG Bond games, or OG Bond in general. So yeah, rest in peace, Sean Connery. But I distinctly remember this game. I'm like, this isn't Pierce Brosnan. that was my first thought. That's not the guy I know. That's not the modern Bond. Even though by this point he'd retired. And this was a game, mind you, made in 2003. Well, technically the version everyone cares about came out, like, in 2004. But seriously, like, this is a game that came out, like, you know how long ago 2004 is? And it's so good. Why would anyone play it? It looks ancient. It doesn't have, those high definition graphics. You want to know what it really doesn't have? See if I can find it. I would like for every one of you to look away if you don't want to see disturbing content. You want to know what it doesn't have? You want to know what Bond does not have? No other game has that Jim Ryan really wants you to play. It doesn't have this. That's what it doesn't have. Seriously. That's what it doesn't have. This is the type of game we want to play. Seriously. This. Where you have... Oh, fuck off, man. Such a dumb thing to say, too. Oh, my favorite. I love these memes. These memes are fucking amazing, man. I love these memes. Wow, look at this shit. I love these memes. I love these fucking memes. They're amazing. These memes are fucking amazing. No! Oh, no! I love these memes. No! No! Oh my god, is that a JoJo reference? No! Holy shit! Wow! There's a lot of these. I gotta save these memes later. This is actually pretty good. No! Oh no! Fuck that. No, alright, we're done with that. Oh my god, that's hilarious. But seriously, like, I think it's ironic because Sony is trying to make a bigger effort to bring back some of their older games. I mean, that's why the PS5 is completely backwards compatible with the PS4. I think the list of PS4 games that aren't compatible are like anything that requires like the PlayStation Eye or something weird, and then PT, because Konami wants you to forget that PT ever existed. It was backwards compatible, and then Konami came along and said, we don't want it to be. That's it. You can't even play what we will never make. We don't even want you to play it. Fuck you. And that's why I can never lose my PlayStation 4. I will walk through fire to keep this shit. Because in all honesty, I think it's an important part of gaming history. Even if it didn't happen, I think it is a big deal. I think it says a lot. It's not just so much just a unique horror game that will never, it's a teaser for a game that will never be made, because if it was just that, it wouldn't be as cool. It would actually be kind of a letdown, but it would still be cool because it's unique and you can't really get it anymore. But what it really is a testament to the possibilities of gaming, the power, the ideology, how one man, and not even involved with a franchise, can fucking save it. And then the companies will look at it, they'll see how much people want it, how much hype it generates, how much awesome crazy shit people get into it with, how much media attention they get, how they go from being the heroes because Kojima wanted to make a demo and didn't ask them, and somehow all of a sudden one of their franchises, everyone is looking back at it and like, holy shit, man, holy shit, like seriously, like imagine. And then they just look at it and say, well, Kojima went against our back, so fuck him. And then nuke the whole project. I think it's a testament to that. I think that's really why it matters to me. Is PT, despite being nothing but a positive idea in my mind as a game, in terms of something that a publisher had to deal with, is nothing but a negative reminder. And it's not like it makes me sad. It just reminds me games can be good. But the things that keep games from being good a lot of times are the publishers. It's not the developers half the time, believe it or not. It's the publishers. The publishers forcing the devs to do something stupid, and then when the game has problems, everyone blames the devs. I watched it happen with EA. I mean, people shit on EA all the time, so maybe it's a little bit unfair. But like Visceral, they make 3 good Dead Space games. The third one was a little weaker. They make Battlefield Hardline, which performed better than any Battlefield on console I remember at launch, and actually had a campaign that was worth something. It played into the whole police cop drama pretty well. Gameplay wise, it was pretty fun. It was one of the campaigns of an FPS I actually really did enjoy replaying for the platinum. The multiplayer was fine. And you want to know what they did to poor Visceral? Disbanded them. Didn't even let them conclude Dead Space before cutting them off at the legs, taking them out behind the shed, putting a shotgun to the back of their head and blowing the fucking shit out of their brains. There's easier ways to paint a Jackson Pollock painting than murdering your fucking Star Studios. Because what does EA have now? Respawn and fucking DICE, and then the sports people. And that's a lot. I mean, they could live with that. Well, you know what was cooler? I'll tell you what was cooler. Back in the day when you had Mirror's Edge, you had Bad Company 2, you had Dead Space 1, and then Dead Space 2, which was heavily marketed. You had, outside of EA, games like, I'm trying to channel it, I'm sorry, Darksiders, Bayonetta, Alan Wake. There was a lot of cool shit that came out in the 2010s. It was Twisted Metal had a game back then. Sly Cooper got a game in that time. Sony notoriously abandons these games, by the way. Sly Cooper fucking left out to dry. Jak and Daxter actually dead. The only one they kept was Ratchet. Which I'm okay with, if these games only get a game once every 5 or 6 years, but damn, man, at least give us that. I don't think people hate it that much. I think people still love a lot of these games. You can't re-release shit forever. Someday you're going to have to go back to making new games. And Jim Ryan says new IPs are risky. Didn't Ghost of Tsushima just come out this year, homie? I mean, that doesn't mean it's not a very big risk. But shit, considering as much of a shit show that Last of Us 2 drummed up, Ghost of Tsushima came out and people just liked it. And honestly, I know as rigged as the Game Awards are, right? I know they'll probably give it to Last of Us 2 just to spite the online trolls. I know Sony will pay the money to do it. Just so that way the fanboys can say, look, it won Game of the Year at the VGA Awards, even though like half the internet was either indifferent or laughing or did not want to play it, and the week 2 sales dropped like a fucking rock, and the returns were sky high. But seriously, and it doesn't have multiplayer yet, which is also pretty fucking crazy. And I don't know if it ever will get it. I don't know why, if it was not planned, if it was dropped, if big event caused it to stop, or if they're holding it for the PS5. It doesn't have it. It's just a single-player game for 60. It has literally half as many modes as the original. I mean, sure, it could win Game of the Year. I think the internet speaks for itself, though. I think a lot of people don't like it. I think a lot of people have very valid reasons for not liking it. I know there's a lot of YouTube commentators and video essayists that have talked about why it's so bad. Why they think it's trash. Why I even think it's trash. I think there's ways to do storylines that are way better than that. And it's not. It has its big load-blowing moment at the beginning, not even on good writing terms, and it spends the rest of the game trying to justify it. And it doesn't really get anywhere. And when you have people like Jim Ryan saying, I don't see why people would play these old games, look at the advancements we've made. He says even on this very article that I'm still on, by the way, when we dabbled in backwards compatibility, I can say it's one of those features that is much requested but not actually used. But then the next, what year is this? The next 3 years? Wasn't this the same year that the Crash Reignited shit came back? You mean to tell me that people wouldn't play Crash on their PS4? Just basic Crash if they had the option? People wouldn't play that? People, they put it in fucking Uncharted 4. I know it's in Uncharted 4. They have the Bandicoot level. It's like a Naughty Dog, homage to their good old days. You mean to tell me that those types of games wouldn't survive? Yeah, they remake it technically, they remade Medieval and Spyro and all these other games. But you mean to tell me, people wouldn't do that? No one? People would rather play for PlayStation Now? I mean, you have the service on your console. You mean to tell me that people don't actually use it? When you got games in your library like Final Fantasy VII on the PS4, you specifically got those games? Like, people wouldn't do that? What is that? That is backwards compatibility. That's not a PS4 game. That game existed long before you even worked at Sony. So, like, I have no clue what he's trying to say here. People use backwards compatibility. Speedrunners use it. People like me who just want to play old games use it. That was essentially, and I mean, you could say that's anecdotal, it's a small portion, but I think that especially now, that's the big shift with this generation is backwards compatibility. Games being available on even on the latest shit. Microsoft has done it. Microsoft. And their backwards compatibility isn't perfect. Like, I can't play Everything or Nothing on the 360, even though like it reads it. I think it reads Nightfire. It doesn't play Nightfire, and it won't even boot Everything or Nothing. But seriously, like, people like backwards compatibility. Not only do they like it, I think they use it. And if they didn't, you wouldn't have spent all that development time and money on a console that can mimic a PS4, because that's backwards compatibility. But I digress. Like I said, I think it was a really weird argument. I don't really think it's intentionally made seriously, because I don't think you seriously could say that and then do what Sony did for the next 3-4 years. And I mean, like, you have people like he says this, and then he says like new IPs are risky, when arguably some of the best games of the last couple of years, especially out of Sony, have been new IPs. I mean, God of War is not really a new IP. It was definitely a reboot of the franchise, but it's not a new IP, so fair enough. Ghost of Tsushima? Last of Us? Remember that in 2013? How everyone loved it? That's why everyone hates Last of Us 2, because Last of Us 1 everyone fucking loved. They thought it was awesome. You know? I mean, I understand that there is a risk with new IPs, but I think that's the problem gaming fell into, is that no one wants to take the risk on making a new game and trying to sell it, and it not selling like their top title. So like, they want Deus Ex to do Final Fantasy numbers. Deus Ex will never do Final Fantasy numbers. More people know what Final Fantasy is than Deus Ex. Period. It will never change. It will never happen. Ever. It's like Ubisoft. Like, I want a new Rayman game, but what do people know Ubisoft for? Assassin's Creed and Siege. I just think they should make one once every, millennium. Beyond Good and Evil 2. We're mentioning all the fucking games. Beyond Good and Evil 2. Another game that just exists and didn't go anywhere. They've had it in development hell since 2009 or like 2008. I remember seeing screenshots for it, right? Like, that's another game. And then they re-released it, the original. Like, they re-release all these games all the time, even on PlayStation. Right now, Astro's Playroom is a massive throwback to the good old days. The new intro to PlayStation games on Miles Morales, I saw it, is like all the old PlayStation games, because it's like, their whole IP. I think he changed his tune after this. But like, this is the shit that like they do. They say stuff like this. They say new IPs are risky, when arguably the best game this year is a new IP. It was a long, it almost kind of fell in a little bit of development worries. I fucking think Ghost of Tsushima is one of the best Sony games I've played in the last 20 years. Period. I don't think there's been a Sony game I liked more than Ghost of Tsushima. And there might be one I'm missing and forgetting. I'm about to end this podcast, don't worry. But seriously, like, I don't think there's been a Sony game I've liked that much in 20 years. Since, like, literally, like, the original Spyros. I really don't think so. I'm going to record after this, by the way. But I digress. That's the whole thing. It's like, Sony wants to be Nintendo with like its long legacy of games. Well, you can only have a long legacy of games if you've been making games a long time. And they weren't making PS4 or PS5 games in the 90s. They were making PlayStation 1. I got my PlayStation 1, actually, right here. This console, I've had since 99, I'm pretty sure. I don't know if I could even see what the copyright is on it. No, it was made in Japan on December 2000. Yeah. I think. It must have been, right? Yeah, so this is my PlayStation 1. It's my literal oldest console, and it still works to this day. You know why it still works? You know why? Because I love this thing. And I don't want to get sentimental, but without this thing, I wouldn't be into video games, period. I would have dabbled in them, sure, maybe, and my cousin would have been the one, but I wouldn't be into video games. I wouldn't be the same person I would be today without it. I have a lot of memories with this thing, and that's why I've officially retired it. I don't want to, run it till it doesn't work. This thing made my childhood. It's a PS1 Slim, by the way, if anyone's wondering. It's not a normal one, and I love it. It is truly something I took care of out of all the years of me playing video games on the internet. I might have recorded off of it once or twice, maybe. But like out of all the years of me playing games, even before YouTube, I treasured this thing. Because I knew that even with my limited library of PS1 games, I didn't have all the games that, everyone has now or everyone grew up with. I knew that it made enough of an impact to me. Seriously, like just playing Spyro 1, 2, and 3, Crash 3, and Rayman 1 and 2. Like, it was fun. And those games, well, most of them have been remade if you're lucky, but most of them, you can't get that kind of experience now. And the shit they want to sell to you is not on the same level. It might look better, it might play better, it might have better graphics and shit. But as I said 10 years ago, 20 years ago, and as I'll say again, graphics don't make a game. Graphics are cool, but after looking at it for, 10, 20, 30 hours, it doesn't change. It's graphics. Anyone can make a good-looking game at this point. Ghost of Tsushima's a little bit out of that category, though, because it's artistically really good-looking. But seriously, graphics don't make a game. Gameplay makes a game. Story makes a game. Something memorable that you'll remember for life, And I hope that they understand that now. This is a 3-year-old article. But they it's just weird. I kind of wanted to say, I never really talked about this, I don't think. And if I did, that podcast happened ages ago, because I kind of stopped doing podcasts regularly in 2017. But I did want to say my piece on that, because I think it's important. I think this generation will really be about backwards compatibility and game accessibility, because it's important to have that. And right now, to go full circle, Nintendo does not fucking get that at all. They don't. They just fucking don't. And Sony kind of does, but I really feel it's only because Xbox understood it the most, because they lost last generation. And I don't know if they'll ever be on top again, but it's really powerful to have that kind of understanding. I think it's only ever a good thing for the players and the users, and I like it. That's about all I have to say. I know this podcast was only so long because it was basically like a month worth of stuff. Oh, hold on, what is this? Did I talk about Mass Effect Remaster? Yeah, it'll include all base content and DLC from all 3 games. Get a new, okay. Yep. Spring 2021. And then they talk about it. Oh, and there's a new game for Mass Effect. I didn't put that on here. But who knows where that'll be. Seriously. We'll see what that is. I don't really know. Oh, and the last thing to talk about is, our good friend Anita reared her head again. I don't know where she's been for the last couple of years. She got upset over Mandalorian, I forget her name, Bo-Katan, having boob armor. Yes, that is something that is a critique in 2020. And then when called out about this by basically everyone on Twitter, and Twitter basically dogpiled on her. It was kind of brutal, even by like Anita standards. She mentioned, oh, there sure are a lot of blacksmiths in my mentions today. Well, I don't want to be that dude, but Anita, you're not a blacksmith. You're not. I'm sorry, you're not. And I'm sure that most of these people have probably looked into more research about armor in general than you have. I'll be the first to say that. I thought about, what's funny is I actually thought about this recently, because of unrelated reasons. But I was like, Anita hasn't been around in a while. I wonder whatever happened to her. Especially with Big Event 2020. I'm like, shit, are we ever going to hear from her again? After the UN thing that she did, that even the UN doesn't want to acknowledge happened? And this is what she does. So she's still at the same scam that she's always been at. And I think that's pretty fucking cool, dude. You know what? Some people never change. I still do the same shit on YouTube I did 10 years ago at this point almost. and she still does the same stupid argument she did 10 years ago. It's kind of crazy how the more shit changes, the more it stays the same. It's pretty fucking cool. So big ups. I hope you all had a great Thanksgiving. You know, you had lots of turkey. You had a good time. You had sweet potatoes, rice, mac and cheese, collard greens, gravy, stuffing, cranberry sauce, delicious, dripping, juicy turkey. You had some nice ham, some you know, whipped potatoes. I'm gonna say potatoes, yes. I actually I cook a pretty good stuffing. I wish I could share it with any of you viewers. I actually do a good job with that. But yeah, it's been a pretty fun fucking episode, I'll tell you that. I like doing these, I just never do them for literally no reason at all. And I'm hoping to change that. Probably won't. I digress. Have a good one, everyone. I will see you next week or the week after. And I will talk with you soon.